Welcome back to House of Horns. My name is Victor Corona, aka Vic the producer. Joining me is Gilbert Manzano, who does it for Sports Illustrated. Gilbert, it was a sloppy game for the Rams and Raiders, but we got to see Stetson Bennett take the lead. How are you doing, Gilbert? And just give me your takeaways from this matchup today.
Yeah, it kind of feels like last week's performance for Stetson Bennett, where like it was pretty slow, took him a while to get going, and then it kind of ended up being a pretty good performance. Same thing this week, and the game's not even over, but 11 seconds in the third quarter. That's how you treat preseason, Victor. It was like, okay, we saw enough to do a post game show, even though the game is still going on. But by the time we're done, it'll probably be over. But I did see Stetson Bennett run the ball right now for a touchdown. So that's kind of what he brings, a little bit of a little different elements. But 2 weeks in a row for Stetson Bennett to kind of get going. Again, we're all waiting for the real football. But in terms of the guys like Stetson and trying to make a case for themselves, I think that's what week 2 of the preseason was, Victor. Uh, Guys who need to prove something played, and the ones that didn't, it bodes really well for those guys.
Yeah, and one guy that was missing is Puka Nakua. I was kind of surprised not to see him. Like as soon as I saw him with the shot on the sideline, I was like, well, they know what they have in him. They're not going to put him out there. So and I think the biggest surprise for me, and I know I asked you about it, and then yesterday I started hearing rumblings about the Raiders playing their ones, and they did. I was kind of surprised. What about yourself? Were you kind of surprised they at least played?
Uh, not really, because it's a new quarterback, and you want to get the quarterback going. And again, people are trying to just assume that Josh McDaniels and Jimmy G know each other from the New England days, but that's been a long time. So, I think that's like the only reason why you play some of these guys. Where like either it's really young, like the Rams are going, or it's a new coach or a new quarterback. And for the Raiders' sake, it was a new quarterback. But it was a perfect drive for them, because they went up and scored, and that's okay, Devonta, you're good. Like, go take a seat. So it was kind of a rough Rams defense first drive, because they ran the ball pretty effectively. They had that one big play where they got pressure on Jimmy G, but that play set them up to kind of go on that march. So, you know, a lot of the like for the Rams defense, it felt like, oh, that looks like a starting lineup, but you're like, wait, no Aaron Donald in there. That really makes a big difference. But that tells you a lot of the young guys, they need to prove themselves. But one big thing, Victor, I did not see Byron Young out there, so that bodes well for him too.
Yeah, they're not going to use any of those guys. But I as you talked about with the defense, it's going to be a roller coaster season, and I think that seeing both of those series for the Rams defense and the Rams offense. I know no Matthew Stafford, no Cooper Cup, but one thing that did stand out to me was the offensive line. They were moving guys on the Raiders first team defense, and so at least the offensive line did their job, and they were moving guys. They were able to. They got one first down, and then after that, it was shut down, and it was mostly because Stenson Benson threw a bad throw, or else they would have gotten the first down on that third down. But outside of that, it's you know what you're getting now from the Rams, and I know it's preseason. We'll see what they look like, but in terms of that first series, I think there were some positives, but a lot of negatives.
Yeah, it is a good sign, for the offensive line to have some success against a starting defense for the Raiders. I saw Maxx Crosby out there. That's why I put it in the title. Bennett did get to see Crosby for a little bit, and I think having that, for the offensive line and even for Stetson Bennett, it does kind of help out. Okay, I could go against some of these guys, but again, you do know it's kind of like an offense is a vanilla, offense where it's not really like a scheme thing. Same thing with the defense. They're going to go 100% at you, but it still, gives you some confidence. And I did see, I want to say 3 out of the 5 potential starters on the offensive line: Alaric Jackson, Tremaine Ankrum, and Steve Avila. So 3 right there. Logan Brooks got to play right tackle for Rob Havenstein, who's kind of a developmental project right now with Logan Brooks. So that was probably good confidence too for him. So going against a guy like Maxx Crosby. So again, I'm really concerned, which we mentioned on the show earlier this week, with the offensive line. But this little small sample size, I think it does help out with the confidence at least.
Yeah, and then Logan Bruss had to leave the game with
Oh, that
he
yeah,
rolled his ankle, so that's another concern there. You know,
man.
you don't have no Joe No Boom, and now Logan Bruss.
That was
Hope
the first thing I thought, like, there was injuries, here we go again, and with Logan Bruss, he got hurt last year in the preseason, he tore his ACL, so I'm hoping, for him, it's nothing major like that.
Yeah, that's and it's a bad break. You know, you want to start keeping those offense. I know I saw McClendon and McAllister, I think it was in there as well as the starting center. So that was good to see. But outside of that, it's been a problem with the offensive line. The other guy that kind of stood out as we've gone through this game is Davis Allen, the tight end. I know you said somebody, Hopkins was probably in trouble as a backup tight end, and kind of seen McVay praise him during the live broadcast might might be a problem for Bryson Hopkins. What do you think?
Yeah, I know we're a few weeks away from cutdown day, so that's not a good sign. And as we saw last year, that the Rams are not afraid to just have two guys on the roster for tight ends. That is, Tyler Higbee would definitely be one. And then when I saw Allen out there, I'm like, okay, like if you're not starting in this game 2 preseason against the Raiders, it's not a good look for you. Like, you're gonna be definitely fighting for a job. So with a guy like Bryson Hopkins, it's gonna be big, but when I saw Skoranek out there with the Marcus Robinson and Tyler Johnson, that told me those three guys are fighting right there. Like, Ben Skoranek does a lot for them special teams wise, but he's fighting because you don't have Puka out there, you didn't have Tutu Atwell, and you did not have Van Jefferson. Those guys are safe, I feel like. So, yeah, if Bryson Hopkins can't even start for this game 2 of the preseason, it's just not good. I feel like the experiment might be over. But actually, I want now to think about it, Victor. Sean McVay did say good things about Bryson Hopkins a couple days ago, and that caught me by surprise. So who knows what's going on there? But after a while, you've seen so many of this guy's gotten so many opportunities. It's kind of like, okay, we want to see another look. So this game too felt like, let's give it another look with some guys we don't know too much of just yet.
Yeah, and then switching over to the defense, you had Jake Hummel with the pick six. You saw a couple of you saw Trey Tomlinson with another
Yeah.
nice PBU. So I mean, you're starting to see some of the players that we've heard good things about. I haven't, this is the first I've heard of Jake Hummel, but he was really active as a linebacker. So at least we were kind of concerned with the linebacker crew outside of Ernest Jones, and at least they have something with Jake Hummel and then Trey Tomlinson. So just wanted to get your perspective on what you saw from the defense and some of the players.
Yeah, real quick on Ernest Jones. Maybe I'm late to the party here, but when I saw him up close at the scrimmage on Wednesday, you could tell he gained some muscle. He's a bigger dude now this year to be the middle linebacker. And I saw him on the sideline too. I'm like, Ernest Jones looks like he's in
He
top
did
shape,
look,
and,
yes.
and and having that 1 year to kind of learn from Bobby Wagner might do him wonders. But outside of Ernest Jones, it's a very thin position, and we keep saying, Victor, maybe it's not the worst place to have a thin position because linebackers don't get used as much. It's going to be a whole lot of Ernest Jones for him. That's why he's in tip top shape. But when you have Christian Roseboom, who is really vital for special teams as well, you need a guy like Jake Hummel to step up. And last year, Jake Hummel actually got a job because he was doing things on special teams. So
Yep, that's
this
how you
type
get.
of season where you're kind of going in a transition year, there's jobs available to get away from special teams. And when you saw Sean McVay on the broadcast being so excited, he's in the middle of a conversation with the guys with Whitworth, and he's like, "Hey, Jay, come on!" And he goes for the
Yeah.
fist bump there. So I thought that was pretty cool, and that matters when you got to do a roster cut down there, right?
Yep. Another two players that I kind of wanted to mention, we haven't talked about him, is John Johnston, who
Mm,
signed while we saw him on that Sunday training camp, and we didn't,
that's right.
that's our bad for not talking about it, but he stood out. Like, that's good leadership, that you need, veteran leadership that you'll need in the secondary. And the other guy was Quinn Lake, the out of UCLA. I actually saw him when he was in high school, so that's that's crazy. But that tells you he's come a long way. But just anybody else, or what about Quinton Lake and John Johnston? If you have any thoughts on them.
Well, first question: did you see the dad play? How about that? That's a long time ago.
I did see him. I did see him. Yeah, I saw him play in the pros. Yes, Carnell
Okay.
Lake.
All
Yeah.
right. Sorry to call you out there, but yeah. Like, you feel old about the son. I don't know
Yes,
about the dad.
I know.
but the defense, real quick to kind of start from the top there. Like for a second, I felt like Aaron Donald was gonna play because you saw some of the tweets that he was in uniform leading out the charge. I'm like, I kind of want to see this because it's a young defense. I want to see what Aaron Donald does. But then it's kind of like we know what he's gonna do come the regular season. He's gonna take on three dudes and take over the blocks and let guys kind of do their thing while he's getting, stop there in the middle with 8 guys. Like, I went from 3 to 8, but that's just Aaron Donald tells you.
Yep.
But I think he wanted to kind of get that vibe of, okay, these are a lot of young guys. Maybe for like my psyche, it'll be good. But yeah, you're right. Like that's why when I saw John Johnson out there, I started thinking, is this like gonna be a starting defense today with Trey Tomlinson and a couple of the rookies? But like, it's just a really young roster with a new guy who's not really new, but he's
Right.
been there before. But he also wants to get a feel for these guys because he hasn't played too much and he was looking for a job all of the offseason. So I think for John Johnson, it was smart to get some reps out there. But overall, it just, I don't know, it was tough to tell because once Brian Hoyer came in, it's like, okay, now you're facing the second string offense. Like, what can we really take away? But I think making plays that kind of resonate in your mind, like Jake Hummel, I think that goes a long way. So to me, I keep going back to Jake Hummel and see and what he did. But obviously Trey Thompson too, making more plays. It wasn't Devontae Adams like he did in the scrimmage, but they kind of get that PBU. I thought that was pretty good for him too as well.
Yeah, and then I was just gonna mention that as soon as you went to go cover the Chargers and Saints joint practice, Aaron Donald ended up
Yeah.
practicing for the joint practice, so he just wanted to not show up for you.
Just want to
He
show me that what I've been trying to look at, Donald with a young defense. He's like, you're not gonna see it.
and apparently the defense was was played really well. That defensive line played really well that day, and maybe it was it shows having Darren Donald is going to help a lot. But as you said, he's probably going to take on like 3 or 4 dudes blocking. But outside of that, there wasn't there's not a lot to look look forward to on that defense. Just in terms of the veteran guys. As we talked about John Johnston and some of the other guys. So, it's all going to be all rookies. And hopefully, even as Raheem Morris talked about, I thought one of the guys they talked about, I think was the cornerback McCutcheon
Yeah.
and the other McCutcheon we haven't even heard of. So, as
Um,
we talked about, I don't think we're going to see McCutcheon make this team. But I thought McCutcheon, Raheem Morris talked about McCutcheon being one of the guys that kind of has stood out in camp. So, that's another guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, at this point, you're gonna get some opportunities because the defense is so young, and I kind of want to go back to somebody who wasn't playing. Like I think it's a strong indicator again on Byron Young. Like like when we were there for the camp in Irvine, it's like Byron Young needs to like really like it's gonna take some time. Like we told each other, and out of nowhere he just really picked it up. Like because he had the great scrimmage against the Raiders. The day I was there, he was making plays. And then the preseason last week against the Chargers, like he really got on Sean McVay's radar for just being a hustler, showing your athleticism, and just being in the right spots. Maybe you're not getting home every time, but to kind of pick it up faster, I think for Sean McVay that meant a lot. And then having the scrimmages, and then you're not even going to play in the preseason of week 2 when like a guy like Trey Thomas and a rookie who's been doing just as well. I know they have more depth in the secondary than they do at edge rusher because Victor, by the way, that first drive with the Raiders, it gave me shades of the first game, not the first game, but the regular season game last year, where they were
Yeah.
running the ball at Michael Hoy and guys like that, and it really kind of helped them get up to a lead. So it's going to be an issue, the running game. But for Byron Young to not be on the field, I think for me went a long way. So, suddenly this Rams defense has some pieces with Trey Tomlinson and Byron Young and Aaron Donald and John Johnson and Ernest Jones. So we'll see what happens when they're all together.
Yeah, no, and that reminded me. I was listening to some of the people who were at that second joint practice, and they were talking about how impressed they were with how Raheem Morris is running that defense in terms of he's changed it up because he's got new personnel and they're more of an attacking defense
Mm,
as the corner something that the Raiders because they saw they were talking about how going back to that November game, that Thursday night game, how it was a completely different defense than what they were seeing in scrimmage, and so they were kind of surprised how much Raheem Morris has changed things up. And I think you're starting to see some of they're bringing in players that kind of they're gonna put him in the mold of what he wants to run now, as opposed to what he had with the players from the Brandon Staley era.
That was gonna be my next point. Like when you brought that up, I'm like, yeah, like when he got the job, they just came off a very successful year with Brandon Staley, and it's kind of like, why go away from the Vic Fangio kind of scheme? And Raheem didn't have that background. And to his credit, he kind of he adjusted to that and he made it his thing. And now he kind of has a little bit of everything, right? So I am eager to see how it develops come the regular season. So for him to show that in a joint scrimmage, when I think that's what really matters is a joint scrimmage, it kind of tells you it could be a very different look, and that's what the good coaches do, right? When it fits your players better, like when you instead of just going like, you know what, I'm a big Fangio guy, or I'm from the whatever the Seattle days, Dan Quinn, that single
Yeah,
high
the Legion
safety,
of Boom.
things like that. You're like, no, I know these things are better for us. No, you kind of fit it to your to your players and what they do well. So I think credit to Raheem, and that's why I always kind of want to give the Rams a chance. Like I know the defense is going to be so inexperienced and young, but when you got Sean McVay and you got Raheem Morris, two good coaches at two critical spots, we'll see how they do with the special teams. A new guy right there, but those two guys being there, I think it really goes a long way.
Yeah, and especially with Raheem Morris, one of the things I've been impressed with him. I know there was a lot of criticism last season because he wasn't aggressive enough and he didn't put a lot of pressure. And I think I one of the things that I also heard about that scrimmage, the 2 days scrimmage there, was how good they played in the red zone. And we've seen how good, they might bend, but they don't break kind of defense, especially under Raheem Morris. So that'll be something to continue to look forward to, is their red zone defense.
Yeah, that's especially such a young defense where you're gonna give up yards. Like it's a given, right? Like you're not gonna be
Right.
a shutdown defense if you kind of do this like last year, the bend don't break approach. If you're getting off the field with a field goal, you give your offense with Matthew Stafford, Cooper Cup, maybe now Puka Nakua. We could start talking about him that way. Cam Akers didn't play also. Yeah, I guess he's fine, but he didn't get in trouble from that fight.
Yeah.
You imagine getting in trouble for fighting and being in a
Yeah.
preseason game, but
Yeah.
he was also out there. So I think if that offense, which it seems better to me, at least on paper, than the defense, if they're just kind of holding it down on defense, we're giving your offense a chance. It goes a long way. And Victor, I'm tired of preseason because you try to find spins and narratives to make it, optimistic point, but like we try to be as real as we can on the show. It's gonna be a lot
Exactly.
of bumps and bruises for this defense,
It's gonna go up and down.
but I do like that they have some early results from a very promising draft class. And Vic, it's one of these draft classes just kind of hits, it could set you up for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, especially with the Rams' history of just being able to find players late in drafts. It's been a gold mine for them, as they went to the Super Bowl twice and won one time. So, um, I wanted to let people know that, kind of our format going forward now, with Gilbert covering the league. He's going to be at SoFi, but we won't have the same access. So I'll be on after the post game show. I'll have a little 10 minute or 15 minutes post game show, and then later on at night, Gilbert and I will hop on, have a recap show, which will come out on Mondays here on House of Horns. So look out for that. We'll do a little promo later on just to let people know, make sure they know what we're up to, and then of course we'll have the review. We'll do a review kind of recap during the week, and then preview the matchup that's coming up. And then before we get to I just wanted to get that out there, Gilbert.
Yeah.
Before we get to our final
Yeah,
thoughts
well, let
here.
me throw in some 2 cents there because
Yeah.
I like this format because we like kind of like today, right? We
Yes.
have the game is not over. It's still the fourth quarter. I just saw the
Right.
Raiders score, but nobody cares, right? It's
Nobody
preseason.
cares.
We want to be quick as possible to kind of give you our quick takeaways. It's not like things we sit down and kind of like really assess. It's just kind of quick thoughts, and then we want people to be giving us comments. We want people to be engaging with our content. Let us know what you caught, what you agree with, things like that. So if you're watching the game closely, this preseason game, and then you check out the post game show, leave a comment and we'll try to answer it maybe the next time. But that'd be the cool thing. Like, say you got a bunch of questions, Victor, you get flooded with comments for every week for a game that you can't get to all of them. We'll jump on together later, and then we can answer a few of them.
Yep.
So that's kind of my ideal plan. But the main thing is we want to have a live show with you holding it down to get people talking after a game.
Yeah, and then we'll provide information as I go. Just kind of give you guys a quick, rapid post game show, and then we'll give our final recap with Gilbert, and then it'll get published on Monday morning, so that way if you guys send in some questions, whatever questions, as Gilbert said, whatever questions we didn't get to, we'll answer them in that recap show, and then and it'll come out Monday. So we look forward to that. Just final thoughts, Gilbert, on this. I mean, there's not a lot to take away
Yeah.
from this. We just wanted to kind of go over some of the things that kind of stood out from tonight's game, even though
Yeah,
it's not over.
yeah, it's pretty much over. But I'll
Yeah,
go with what I started. I think this game for me was kind of just to see where Stetson Bennett is at, and to start this week. I think last week he was second to Rippon, right? It feels like the Rams just want to make him the backup. Like you won two national titles at Georgia. You're older than Justin Herbert, which we heard a lot last week. Like you're 26 or whatever the hell it is. I forget. Like you're supposed to be ready to be a backup, and I think that's what the Rams want him to do.
yeah,
And he shows flashes where like say the worst happens in the regular season, and I think he could be a guy to hold it down. I know it's a rocky start for him the last 2 weeks, but you get that out the way now. So I've been encouraged to see some big time throws when he's he's looking down the field. He's not there when it comes to being a quick processor, but he's a playmaker. He's like a backyard kind of style guy. So sometimes that's all you can ask for when you're in the backup. It's gonna take time. And then seeing him make that run for the touchdown it just kind of leaves a good taste in your mouth or whatever your brain. Uh, and Actually, Andrew Moreno here. We got a comment here.
all right, there we
Yeah, he
go.
was. He's probably like, you know what? Just be real. He was bad today. He was
Yeah,
pretty bad to start with. He had an interception, right? It was a pick six that
yep.
from
It
one of
was.
the
It looked like Tyler Johnson and him were not on the same page there.
That's what
So
it was. You're right.
yes,
See, Andrew, you brought it up. There was miscommunication there. I remember that, and that's kind of like, oh, that's a bad one. But you never know what happens. I even saw Van Jefferson talking to Stetson Bennett on the sideline. He's asking, "Hey, were you guys off there communication wise?" That's what you got to learn. But it is a good sign that as the games goes on, he's getting a flow of things. That he is a rookie technically, he's just older.
yes.
That it's gonna pick up. So I think for me, just watching him today, just for like being the backup, it's an important job. That's what I kind of take away from this game.
I think for me, it was just seeing the offensive line and just what they did in that first series against the Raiders' first team defense. Like my biggest concern going into last season was the offensive line, just with everybody that was gone. I think this season, you have a little bit more. You have a little bit more. Uh, a little bit more depth there. And I think, even with, my only concern, I guess, going now is the fact that Logan Bruss,
Yeah,
left with a high ankle sprain or, a bad ankle. So you're just hoping Jono Boom and him get healthy and you can go into the regular season with a healthy offensive line, because I still think this offense is going to be good, and so it's just if you have a healthy offensive line throughout the whole season and you can get a whole season out of Stafford, this will go a long way to being, maybe an 9-8, maybe 7-9 kind of season. So it bodes well if you can stay healthy along the offensive line.
yeah,
So
you gotta have your depth. Even a year ago, like there was a sense that Logan Bruss wasn't gonna start for this team. It was Coleman Shelton, but then when he got hurt and everybody else started getting hurt, you really felt the loss. Like, oh man, imagine the rookie third round pick could be helping right now, and he just wasn't available. So hopefully for him, it's nothing like that. It's good that he's going back to like a natural position as a tackle for him to kind of develop, but we'll see. Because as we found out last year, offensive line is such a critical unit. If you can't protect Stafford, you're not going anywhere. So if they do that, then all these positive notes that we're talking about, rookies or whatever, it only works if the offensive line is protecting.
yeah, I agree. And and then the defense will take care of itself, especially with what we saw from Raheem Morris. He's coaching up those young players. So with that, Gilbert, go ahead and close us out. We'll try, depending on how that last game goes, we'll either have another one, but we'll have you guys cover. We'll
Yeah.
have plenty of content for you guys.
Yeah, it's like the third one. I don't know if I want to do it. It's kind of let's get on with the
Yeah,
season. But
yeah.
this was such a good week for just having good content and good engagement. Like we saw people watching our videos and commenting. I was like, you know what, we got to give the people what they want. So we'll kind of feel it out. If people are interested in week 3, or we're kind of all mailing it in for the regular season, then we'll listen to that too. But Victor, we're ready to go, right?
Yes.
Y nos vamos, as you know, pues vámonos.